Hi everyone, my name is Jenna Roby and I'm the Program Coordinator for Disability Support Services. And today we have with us Dr. Paulette Dilworth, the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at UAB. So Dr. Dilworth, as Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, how do you see disability as a part of diversity?
Um, well, if you are familiar with our really broad definition of diversity, and I think it's important for us to have some common understanding of when we use the term diversity, what we actually mean. And so, yes, disability is one of those areas that we include in our definition of diversity here at UAB. It is central and actually core to a lot of the work that we focus on moving forward. And it is actually one area in particular that is near and dear to me because I had an older sister who was born with special needs. And because of that, spent a lot of time, being in part when my mother was unavailable, her caretaker. And so I think I have sort of a really nuanced and rooted understanding of what it means for people who live with disabilities to navigate sometimes difficult or challenging spaces. And so to me, it's important that everybody sort of take the opportunity to educate themselves about the whole concept of disability and what that means. I like to flip the script with the term itself as opposed to saying disability, it's ableness, because what we work towards is creating spaces where people are able to perform, be included, gain access, or what have you. So that's how I think about that in terms of what it means to really be in a place where we're helping people as opposed to creating barriers that continue to make life difficult for them.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So from what I understand, your professional career has provided opportunities to work at different institutions. So
Mm-hmm.
can you share your thoughts on diversity through the lens of access at UAB?
Absolutely. So I think that first of all, I really would give lots of credit to your office and to the work that you and Allison are doing here at UAB. I think that the fact that we have an office that is dedicated, particularly for students, to provide the space, so that if they need accommodations for whatever disability that they might have, that they are able to do that. And then on second thought, and the second thing that I like to say about that is that we can do more in terms of our education, the using our education spaces as ways to educate people more about what it means to be inclusive, especially around people with disabilities. There are some instances where I've attended programming, for example, and there might not be an interpreter there. And that was when we were actually able to physically locate, or instances where an event might be scheduled in a space, and if you observe the space, that it may not necessarily be accessible to everyone. So those are the kinds of things that it's a matter of educating people, and then as we observe and catch things, pointing them out to folk that, hey, this might be problematic for people with disabilities, a wheelchair user, or say a person who has limited sight, or a person who even has hearing impairments of such. So that to me is the space that I see when I think of access. That's what I mean. Not only access for the user, but access for the provider, so that they basically have a good understanding of what it means to make our spaces accessible here at UAB.
Absolutely. What would your advice be to faculty and staff to ensure access and inclusion for individuals with disabilities?
My first piece of advice is to be mindfulness, paying attention to, if you're a faculty, to your students in the classroom. One of the things that I learned at another of the multiple institutions where I've landed. And in fact, I was responsible at that time for, I guess, developing the first office for disability services at that particular campus. And one of the things that was really, really hard for a lot of faculty was acknowledging that we have really, really bright students, but at the same time, we also have students who, for a variety of reasons, do have disabilities that sometimes might require that they get accommodations above and beyond what they typically would do in their classrooms. And so I think that's the first piece of it, is to just develop a sense of mindfulness and don't make assumptions about who's in your space or who you're looking at. And just because it's not obvious doesn't mean, because not all disabilities are physical. And that too sometimes can be a challenge for people to understand that, well, even when they don't look like they're, have a disability, or I don't understand. Well, and that's why we have an office that can help you. And then to seek out expertise around this, like working with your office and not being afraid to ask the questions that you really don't know, or just simply, acknowledging, well, I just really don't understand, and I guess I need some help trying to help. I need you or your expertise to help me figure that out.
Right.
Yeah.
So as an expert in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education, looking forward, what opportunities do you see as potential focus areas for UAB?
Well, I think they're pretty much, as with everything else, if we're talking about, in my office, we use the term inclusive excellence. And what inclusive excellence means is that we set a standard around inclusion that also suggests that anyone, whether it's a person with a disability, a person who comes from a different ethnic background, religion, language, all of those, that regardless of what they bring to the table, that there is space for them to be successful. And we do that in ways that allows for people to bring their best selves with the support that we can provide. One of the things that I really, really appreciate about working here at UAB is the opportunity to collaborate with different units. Say, for example, the Office of Services to Students with Disabilities. HR has a unit that works with staff. And I think that those are the kinds of things that when you talk about inclusive excellence, it sends a very clear message that these are the things that are important, and we do make them a priority here at UAB. And I just hope that we don't lose the momentum that we have, and we'll continue to seek out those spaces, those barriers, or those challenges that are there, so that we can be even better in the future.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. That concludes this episode, and thank you for being a part of this web series.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share my perspective with you.
Thank you.